Hello and welcome to another update video. Today we want to talk about Microsoft MSFT, and this is a stock I haven't looked at for a while. We at the time, I think it was November, looked at it once and we saw the price just move above resistance and it broke above a trigger point I mentioned back then. And then I highlighted this probably means that we are moving up in wave 5 in yellow towards the $400 range, which is also what unfolded in recent months. It's not a stock I'm updating regularly, but at the moment the tech stocks are doing really well. So I get a lot of requests currently for the tech stocks. So I thought, from time to time, it makes sense to cover. Also, I posted this here today in our Patreon membership on Discord in one of the additional stocks. As one of the additional stocks that I also update for the higher tiers. Feel free to check out the link in the description that takes you to our Patreon page. There you can sign up for a plan if you're interested in daily S&P 500 updates as well as regular updates about stocks. But let's dive into the Microsoft analysis. We are dealing here with a situation in which the price formed basically a 5-wave move to the upside from this substantial low point that was actually formed, or it was actually here, in November 22. So there's a bit of it's a bit ambiguous because you can count the move up as an impulse, but also as a diagonal pattern. Yeah, both possible. We're dealing with that situation because, first of all, the low that was formed in November 22, that's a 4th wave. So the move up can definitely be an impulse and a diagonal, because a wave 5 can be an ending diagonal. And then when it starts like this with an ABC structure, you tend to think, especially when the proportions are correct, then you think, okay, that might be wave 1 in an ABC structure, so it has to be a diagonal. Then also here, ABC, it counts quite well as a diagonal. So that's what I'm leaning to, diagonal pattern. It could also be an impulse. I've got the yellow count here. That would be the impulsive count, but then the wave 5 is already very extended. Makes sense to look at both, but I think from a reward to risk point of view, we are now getting here close to a top. Of course, there is no evidence for a top in place at this stage. Absolutely no evidence for a top. So while I think it might not be the most attractive one to look for new long positions at the moment until we get a pullback, it is not the time to short until we have evidence for a top in place. That's my view. But you can see a very nice 5-wave move to the upside, which means that we could be close to a more substantial top on the Microsoft chart. And let's zoom in. This is now price action from the last significant low point in September 23. At the time, the market completed here a 4th wave, ABC structure, and this 5th wave to the upside started. So there are 2 counts. There's a yellow one, which is basically a little bit less bullish because it could be really over at any point. Basically, it can top at any point. And this is an impulsive count in which we had a wave 1, a wave 2, a wave 3, a wave 4, and the wave 5 is basically now unfolding, might get one more squiggle higher, and then it might top and come down. And then we will have to consider, okay, again, is this a wave 1 of a larger 5-wave move, okay, and we just do an ABC, we come down in a wave 2 and then go from there, or is it going to correct? Then obviously it would need to hold this point here at $309, or is it going to correct the entire move up that started here in November, or maybe even the next larger degree? So I think that will depend to a degree on the wider market as well. I'm looking at the possibility for a more substantial top that could form very soon on the Nasdaq, for example, as well. So yeah, I will definitely offer different support areas, and we just have to watch then the relevant support levels. I think the best approach will be, let's see if micro support can break at some point. That indicates at least that the more substantial top is in place, and then we'll have to watch if certain support levels hold or not. When the market approaches certain support levels, do we see a reaction there or not, and what is going to be the structure? But yeah, I mean, there will be, I think there should be, at least, I shouldn't say there will be, there should be a more substantial pullback in the near future, but can still stretch higher. So we take a look at so in the short term. So we take a look now at the next targets to the upside. Again, I'm leaning to the idea that this is a diagonal, which means that, say, this was an ABC in wave 1, this was an ABC in wave 3, and it seems like the wave 5, ABC in wave A here, this was a B wave, and we're now in this C wave to the upside. And that can stretch a bit higher. That can still stretch a bit higher. And what would be possible targets for a C wave? So the way to measure that is we take the length of the A wave, go to the low of the B wave, and I'm watching for the 100% extension level. I mean, we can debate, was the B wave here? Was it maybe here? It doesn't change a lot. You know, we're talking about a few dollars here, so it doesn't really change much, but we would be looking at, I mean, next Fibonacci resistance will be at $419. I think that's one that I'd be watching. It's not so relevant for this scenario, but it's something where we could maybe see a bit of a reaction. Then we have the next one afterwards at 435. They are sort of, I would say, minor resistances or next targets. The really relevant one is the 100% extension. That's around $455. Okay, so let's call it 450 if we consider that the B wave might be a little bit lower here, actually. It's a bit unclear where exactly the B wave was, because you can count that in different ways here. But I would say, you know, focusing on the 450 seems reasonable at the moment, especially as long as we don't have a sign that a more substantial top is in place right now. So the trend is still up at the moment. I'm just checking if we can actually add a trend line here as well. Oh yeah, so that might be useful. I think as a first indication really that this chart has topped, we might want to consider this trend line. So as soon as we see a break below that trend line, it would indicate a more substantial top is in place. In addition to that, I tend to use the 78.6 retracement level of that last rally here. And that's at $376. So these are two main support regions. So if we measure the Fibs, this is a support region, even though I would only use the lowest one here really as relevant support, 376. As soon as that's breaking, it indicates that we will probably also see this break, and then we'll see a much larger downturn, possibly close and to retest here the area around 325. But for now, you know, this can still stretch a little higher. As I said, 419, 435, 455, which will be a relevant one. In the scenario in which we're dealing here with an impulse, the wave 5 might be over also very, very shortly. Let me just double check something. Yeah, okay, they will be relevant as well anyway. So for the yellow count, the 61.8 extension is more relevant and the 78.6, whereas the 100% extension is more relevant for the white count. And even that doesn't mean it has to finish there. So it can still stretch higher. But I would say, let's take a look at the trend line. When that breaks, we're watching 376. But basically, the break of the trend line would be a first indication that a more substantial top is in place. And if that breaks below, if we then break below 376, I think we have a more substantial top really. That would also mean that we'll most likely take out here the January lows, then we'll retest the October lows and probably even the September lows. And, you know, then we're sort of in this cascade down. Basically, the bottom line is as soon as we now see anywhere a first 5-wave move down, especially if we break below support, then a corrective rally that might actually be a reasonable short trade rather than looking for long trades. Not because it couldn't go any higher, it certainly can, yeah. So I'm not telling you short and sell everything, no. But once we see a setup to the downside, we have a decent reward to risk ratio there. Oops, yeah, I just want to add the RSI actually. Take a look at some of the indicators. And on the relevant ones will be on the daily, for example. So yeah, so looking at the daily, just want to check, do we see any divergences? Not yet, exactly, not yet, but I think if we push any higher, we might see the development of some bearish divergences on the daily. Looking at the weekly chart, this is still pushing higher. Okay, also here, no bearish divergences yet on the weekly. Now saying that we don't need bearish divergences to form, for example, this more substantial top that formed here in November 21, also topped from a similar region on the weekly RSI and did not produce a bearish divergence actually. Not sure if actually, okay, so that was a clear divergence here. But yeah, it doesn't always, you know, a reversal doesn't need a divergence. And I've said that in the NASDAQ video as well. If really the last move up here is an ending diagonal that started in October 22, then these can appear very bullish, but knowing it could be a diagonal means we have to be careful, because diagonals, when they break quickly, okay? It will be rapid. So that's just something to be very much aware of. But yeah, can still push a little higher. One more thing maybe to add. I mean, is this trend line maybe relevant? Parallel trend channel maybe. We've got the wave 2-4. So if I am, let me just copy that rather. And that might guide, you know, might give us a hint where the wave 5 might top. I would pay attention to that. That could lead us to 435, 455. So that would all add up at the moment. Yeah, hope you liked the update about Microsoft. If you did, please hit the like button, leave a comment and subscribe. And if you're interested in daily updates about the S&P 500, we offer video updates as well as regular updates about stocks. Then check out our stocks and S&P 500 service. Thanks a lot for watching. Bye-bye.